The eviction notice slapped against my chest at 8:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Pink sheet, formal-looking emblem, 72 hours to clear out. The issue was, I owned the place outright, bought it with cash, no loans, just me, my mug of Joe, and the title tucked away in my file drawer. The lady who handed it over, Brenda Kowich, our HOA head, pushing 60 with a helmet of blonde streaks, a leopard print sweater that yelled, "I demand to see the supervisor." She had a pair of rented security guys backing her up like she was delivering an arrest order. "This community has rules," she declared, loud enough for the whole block to catch. "And you obviously don't fit them." I didn't fight back, didn't even get to my feet. Just took another swig of coffee and grinned, because what Brenda had no clue about, what she was on the verge of finding out in the costliest manner imaginable, would ruin her utterly. Drop a comment. What would you do if someone tried to swipe your own house? And let me know where you're tuning in from. HOA nightmares know no boundaries. Let me rewind a bit. My name's Garrett, and I'm likely not the type you'd picture owning 7 places by 45. I did 12 years in the Marines. 2 tours, more grit in my gear than I'd like to recall, and a spine injury that wrapped up my service but drilled in a key lesson. Adapt or perish. The Corps handed me abilities, a decent retirement check, and a VA loan I planned to handle smartly. In 2019, I snagged my first home in Pinehurst Meadows, a designed subdivision right outside Charlotte, North Carolina. 3-bedroom ranch, nothing extravagant, but it belonged to me. The day I sealed the deal, I stood in that bare living space and experienced something absent for ages. Tranquility. The sort that stems from possessing a patch of earth no one can snatch away. Turns out I thrived on fixing up projects, healing in a way, tearing out worn rugs, mending wall holes, the gratifying snap of a drill driving bolts into new wood. I'd hit up Home Depot on weekends, picking up tips from online tutorials, transforming my spot into something superior to the developer's original. Then I stumbled onto something intriguing. Bank seizures, inheritance auctions, rundown homes right in Pinehurst Meadows, going for 60 cents on the buck. Over 4 years, I discreetly acquired 6 additional ones. All leased out, all kept in top shape, all producing revenue that let me rest soundly. I played it low-key. Operated through an LLC, Summit Holdings NC, bland enough that no one linked it to me. My renters were solid folks, an educator, a healthcare worker, an elderly duo, a budding household. Places remained tidy, payments arrived promptly, and I flew under the radar. Pinehurst Meadows as a whole, your typical suburban setup. 140 houses constructed in the mid-2000s, mainly working-class families and seniors aiming for relaxed retirement. The HOA was required, $85 monthly for grass maintenance in shared spots, a seldom-used pool, and a community hall that reeked of stale brew and faded hopes. For ages, the HOA leadership was basically non-existent. The prior chair was a retired number cruncher who approved everything blindly and headed to Florida in 2023. The deputy wasn't interested in the role. No one else stepped up except Brenda. Brenda Kowich stormed into that board vote like she was campaigning for Senate, vowed to revive community spirit and uphold home prices. She clinched it with 19 ballots, 12% participation, if that clues you in on the apathy level. I encountered her first on a scorching July day where the pavement wavered from the heat. I was swapping out my mailbox pole. The old one had decayed when I caught the sound of heels tapping on my pavement. Not trainers, not sandals, heels in 90-degree swelter. Brenda materialized like an illusion. Blonde accents gleaming in the light, leopard print top ignoring the warmth, and a grin that never touched her gaze. The aroma struck me initially. Some overpowering floral scent that drowned out the fresh-mowed lawn and wet cement. "You must be Garrett," she stated, offering a hand with nails lacquered in coral hue. "I'm Brenda Kowich, your fresh HOA leader. Just here to say hello and ensure you're up on our neighborhood guidelines." I clasped her hand, solid shake, rehearsed. "Pleasure. Guidelines? Oh, you get it. Grass length, bin visibility, stuff like that. We've been too lax for too long." Her glance shifted to my pickup, a 2015 Ford F-150 utility rig, nothing showy. "That's not a business truck, right?" "Personal ride," I replied. 3/4 ton, no markings. She jotted something on her clipboard. "Real clipboard. Well, expect to hear from me. Welcome to the revamped Pinehurst Meadows." Then she tapped off. trailing the dwindling whiff of blossoms and something more. Trouble. The type you sense deep down. The kind the Marines honed me to spot. I should have heeded that gut feeling. 2 weeks on, the initial infraction letter showed up. Via certified post. Never a good omen. Bulky packet. Formal HOA stationery. The full deal. Infraction alert. Business vehicle stationed in home driveway breaching CC&R Clause 4.7b. You have 10 days to fix this or incur $50 daily penalties. I scanned it twice. Then dug out my CC&R's copy, the rules, terms, and limits that rule the HOA. Every buyer gets one at settlement. Most folks skip reading. I'd gone through it twice. Once at purchase and again at 2 a.m. during a sleepless night. Clause 4.7b banned business rigs over 1 ton or with business logos. My truck was 3/4 ton. No emblems, no text, no firm name, just a mildly dusty blue F-150 for supply hauls. I snapped pics, composed a courteous email to Brenda with files attached, quoted the precise wording, and sent it off. Her reply landed the following morning, precisely 4 lines. The board examined your challenge and upheld the infraction. The HOA holds discretionary power in all compliance issues. You have 8 days left to adhere. Discretionary power. The 2 riskiest terms in HOA management. I showed up at the next board session on a humid August night, the hall's AC struggling against the 90-degree blaze. I anticipated a group, perhaps 5 members, some debate, real voting. Instead, I saw Brenda solo at a collapsible table with a wooden gavel still sporting the Amazon tag on its grip. "Where's the full board?" I inquired. "The finance and admin spots are open right now," she beamed. "I'm managing all duties until we find suitable helpers." One individual, she was the whole operation. Arbiter panel and enforcer in leopard spots. I laid out my argument, images, vehicle details, the exact CC&R text. Took about 3 minutes. Brenda didn't bother glancing at my proof. The infraction remains. Next topic. Through the hall's pane, I spotted my neighbor's drive 2 blocks away. Craig Dietrich, one of Brenda's reading group pals. In his spot sat a Chevy Silverado 1500, identical class to my rig. No infractions. "What about Dietrich's Silverado?" I pressed. Brenda's grin could have sliced steel. "Mr. Dietrich is a respected, compliant member who grasps community norms. Meaning, you don't fit in." The Marine Corps instilled one vital truth. When folks reveal their true nature, accept it immediately. Brenda had just displayed hers plainly. Over the following 6 weeks, infraction alerts came steadily. Lawn too high. I gauged 2.7 inches below the 3-inch cap. Trash been out too long. Unauthorized hue on my entry door. Same neutral beige from 2010. Wind chime creating sound nuisance. Yard statue over height rules. Clocked at 11.5 inches, half an inch shy of the 12-inch max. Each alert warned of $50 daily fees. By October, her ghost tally reached $850. My postal worker began offering pity glances. "What did you do to rile the HOA woman?" she asked one dawn. "Existed?" I responded. "I brought on Consuela Verne, a lone attorney focused on HOA fights. Keen mind, $250 hourly, worth it all." She penned a stop and desist note pointing out uneven application, no fair hearing, and bullying trends. Brenda's comeback came from the HOA's fancy city law office. Mr. Garrett's claims lack merit. The board preserves all compliance privileges. More baseless letters will trigger fitting legal steps. Then another infraction. My mailbox pole was worn and degraded. It was treated cedar, aged to that silver patina designer's premium price. It was designed that way. The penalty count climbed to $2,200. Consuela cautioned, "You're correct legally on each point, but HOA court battles are pricey and drag on. Sometimes wisdom means just yielding." But I'd learned one fact over 12 years in the Corps. Tyrants don't quit when you cave. They quit when you force them. I recalled North Carolina Law 47F3118 from years back while scouting rental spots. Owners can demand HOA docs with 10 days written alert. The HOA must deliver. Denial brings fines, judicial mandates, even personal blame for leaders. I wrote a proper demand. Session notes, money reports, agreements, infraction logs for 3 years past, mailed certified. Brenda's answer arrived on day 9. All fiscal papers are in audit and inaccessible. Other items forthcoming post-audit. Projected 60-90 days. 60-90 days for files that ought to be instant. Meaning I'm concealing stuff. I shared in the local Facebook group. Anyone else hit with HOA infractions recently? 47 replies in 3 hours. Iris, my 70-plus neighbor, DM'd me. Brenda, find me for weeds. They're native bee-friendly blooms I've kept for 5 years. I spotted her at the mailboxes next day, fingers shaking as she held another pink slip. The Nguyen clan got tagged for a movable hoop they rolled out weekends only. Meanwhile, Brenda's reading buddies had campers stashed for months, withered yards, drooping barriers. 0 alerts for them. I bumped into Iris at the tool shop. She seemed drained, voice hushed. Brenda keeps dropping hints about a purchaser for my place, says her cousin heads a renovation firm. Her grip tightened on her bag. That's when it hit. This wasn't minor despotism. This was a plot. Badger folks till they list. Direct sales to insiders. Pocket payoffs. I headed home with icy rage building inside. Challenge accepted. Late November, the pink document finally dropped. Not an infraction this time, an eviction order. The one from this tale's start, the one Brenda thrust at me at 8:47 on a Tuesday morning. Order to abandon property for unpaid penalties summing $1,200, forming major violation of HOA rules. You must exit the residence at 428 Birchwood Drive within 72 hours. Non-compliance will lead to forced ejection and extra legal sanctions. It bore a formal-ish stamp, some downloaded county logo. Cited North Carolina Law 47F3-116, but she'd botched it. The law dealt with HOA liens, not ousters. 2 separate matters. Here's what she either ignored or dismissed. HOAs can slap liens on homes for overdue fees or penalties, yeah, but they can't simply boot an owner. That needs foreclosure, a drawn-out court procedure with alerts, buyback windows. You can't just appear with hired muscle and a phony paper. But the order appeared legit enough to frighten the uninformed. Brenda positioned in my drive with 2 guards she'd contracted, polo tops embroidered with Pinnacle Security Services, earbuds likely linked to zilch. The early light hit her hair product, forming a golden aura that might have seemed saintly if her stare wasn't so icy. The odor of fuel fumes lingered from their running van. One guard fidgeted, obviously uneasy. The other gazed forward like protecting a vault instead of bothering a man with his brew. I'm certain this is merely a mix-up, Brenda cooed, tone laced with phony sympathy. But the attorneys will handle it. You might want to begin boxing things. I savored another coffee pull. Let the quiet drag. Saw her grin waver slightly. I'll consider it, I stated at last. She fluttered her lids. Pardon? I said I'll consider it. Enjoy your day, Brenda. I stepped indoors and shut the door, observed from the glass as she lingered, lips parted, before heel-tapping to her vehicle in those absurd shoes. First contact, Consuela, she picked up on ring 2. Please say you're staring at what I suspect. If you mean a bogus eviction order, yep. Emailing a pic. I caught her chuckle, grim and without mirth, as the file arrived. Garrett, this is deceit. She's mimicking official power. You could press charges now? Not quite yet, I replied. I want to watch her push further. Second step. I uploaded the phony eviction to the Pinehurst Meadows Facebook page. Just the pic, no text. Anyone else receiving these? Replies surged. 47 in the initial 3 hours. 12 other households posted matching tales of pestering, false charges, menacing notes, sales pressure. Brenda's backers labeled me a rabble-rouser, blamed me for brewing conflict, damaging home worth. But the impartial locals began posing queries. Solid ones, tough ones. One ally, Dell, a former wireman with limbs like oaks and a mustache fit for an 80s detective flick, PM'd me. Examine the HOA books. Something's fishy. I've lived here 9 years, and we once had funds for real upgrades. Now Brenda says we're strapped. I revisited my doc's request. Still silent after 60 days. Way beyond the deadline. Time to probe harder. North Carolina mandates HOAs choosing specific tax status to submit Form 1120H to the IRS, a basic report of inflows and outflows. And the gem I'd picked up years prior while eyeing rentals. Those docs are open to the public. Searchable on the IRS site if you know the spots. I located Pinehurst Meadows HOA's submission in 20 minutes. The figures chilled my coffee. Total fees gathered 2022-2023 around $142,000. That's 140 units at $85 monthly over 2 years, give or take. Numbers added up. Total outlays listed for groundskeeping, $89,000. I rang the real grounds firm on the payments. Greene County Lawn Care, inquired about their deal sum. Pinehurst Meadows? Yep, we handle their public zones. $31,000 yearly. Steady since 2020. $89,000 reported, $31,000 true. Left $58,000 missing. I spent that evening matching every payment scan in the docs I'd at last obtained. Consuela had warned of a suit, and abruptly the audit wrapped. Each check to Greene County Lawn Care was really issued to another entity, Pinehurst Property Solutions, LLC. Quick search, Pinehurst Property Solutions, North Carolina. Registered Rep. Kenneth Cowich, Brenda's sibling. I leaned back in my kitchen seat. Coffee ignored, screen casting a blue hue in the shadows. The scent of scorched Joe permeated. I'd forgotten the burner. $58,000 diverted to a front outfit by Brenda's kin. My cell vibrated. Dell once more. Urgent HOA gathering set for next week. Brenda's pushing a vote to hike fees 40% for lawyer costs against baseless disputes. Meaning, you. Another ping. From Iris. She's painting you as the bad guy. Watch out, I messaged back. Let her attempt. Because what Brenda remained unaware of, what she was poised to uncover, was that I'd been gearing up for this since that absurd initial truck citation. I accessed my real estate files. 6 titles, all under Summit Holdings NC LLC, 6 spots in Pinehurst Meadows no one knew were mine, including 349 Cypress Lane, Brenda's lease. I reviewed her rental contract. Basic 1-year deal inked 14 months prior. She'd shifted to monthly after. Present state, 2 months delinquent, November and December overdue. My rental overseer had cut slack, unaware of the HOA mess. I dialed him. The renter at 349 Cypress. Issue the standard 10-day pay or leave alert. If no payment, we proceed with ouster. You positive? Holidays are near? Positive. Deals are deals. I skipped mentioning the tenant's identity. No need. The steps would unfold precisely as required. Lawful, recorded, unbreakable. Brenda aimed to toy with eviction ploys using counterfeit alerts and scare methods. Okay, let me demonstrate a genuine eviction. The urgent meeting alert landed in boxes exactly 48 hours prior to the date. The bare minimum per North Carolina HOA regs. Brenda knew how to toe the line without crossing. But she added a bonus, a shiny pamphlet. Vibrant print on thick paper with a mock patriotic red, white, blue frame. Safeguarding our neighborhood from external troublemakers. Under the title, A Shot of My Truck, Awkward Perspective, highlighting a small dent, labeled Business Blight Lowering Home Worth. The copy suggested I was some anonymous speculator indifferent to local ethos, whose groundless suits were draining HOA coffers in legal bills. Not a single word was technically libelous. She'd threaded that needle carefully, but the message was clear. I was the enemy, the outsider, the problem. My mail carrier handed it to me with an apologetic grimace. She mailed these to every house bulk rate. I held the flyer up to the afternoon light. The cardstock alone probably cost $2 per unit times 140 homes. She'd dropped almost $300 on a smear campaign. HOA funds her own money. At this point, the line was so blurred it didn't matter. The neighborhood split predictably. About 60% ignored the flyer entirely. Working people who didn't have time for subdivision drama. 25% mostly Brenda's book club crew in the golf course. Retirees started pairing her talking. Points at the mailbox in the pool. But 15% the people. She'd harassed the ones paying. Attention organized a counter-campaign email chain titled Know the Truth with links to the financial discrepancies. Screenshots of selective enforcement testimonials. From Iris and the Newans, I stayed out of it, publicly let. Them fight that battle. Meanwhile, I had a different move to make. I invited Dell, Iris, and the Neween family to my house on a Sunday afternoon. Spread out the property records on my kitchen table like a general planning an invasion. The smell of Iris's homemade gingerbread filled the room. She'd brought cookies because even in the middle of a war, some people can't help being kind. I need to show you something, I said, pulled out the deeds. 6 properties, all held under Summit Holdings, NC LLC. Dell's eyes widened. You own 6 houses here. 6 rentals, all maintained, all rented to good people. Brenda doesn't know. Iris picked up one of the deeds, reading carefully. Why tell us now? Because I need your help and because it's time to stop playing defense. I explained the math. 6 properties out of 140 total units equals 4.3% ownership. In HOA governance, voting rights typically run 1 vote per property. That gave me 6 votes in any board election or major decision. More importantly, North Carolina law allows any owner to demand a special recall election with just a 10% petition. That's 14 signatures out of 140 homes. Dell grinned. We can get 14 signatures before dinner. Already have them? I said, sliding the petition across Thedable. 17 signatures, actually. I'd been collecting quietly for 3 weeks. Mr. Newen leaned forward. When do we call the election? After the emergency meeting, let Brenda have her moment. Let her think she's winning. Then Ira said something that changed everything. You know she rents, right? Brenda doesn't own her house. Lives in one of those Ashford models on Cypress Lane. My brain stuttered. Cypress Lane, one of my streets. I pulled up the LLC property spreadsheet on my laptop, scrolled to the addresses. 349 Cypress Lane, Ashford model, purchased at estate sale March 2022. Owner Summit Holdings, NC, tenant Brenda Kowich. Lease signed May 2023. The laugh that came out of me was sharp, disbelieving. Dell looked at me like I'd lost my mind. What? He asked. She's maintenance. I turned the laptop around. Brenda Quitch, HOA president, terror of Pinehurst Meadows, rents her house from me. The room went silent. Then Iris started laughing. A sound like wind chimes, delicate and slightly unhinged. Oh, she said, wiping her eyes. Oh, that's perfect. It was perfect. Almost too perfect. I reviewed Brenda's lease that night after everyone left. Standard residential agreement, 1-year initial term, now month to month. Rent $150. Current status per my property manager's records. 2 months delinquent, November and December unpaid. Total owed $3,700. The lease included a standard clause, prohibiting conducting business from the premises without prior written consent. Brenda had been using her rental as the HOA's unofficial office, storing records there, hosting board meetings in her dining room, using the address on official HOA letterhead. Clear lease violation. I called my property manager. Draft a 10-day pay-or-quit notice for 349 Cypress. Standard language, but don't serve it yet. Hold it until I give the word. You sure about this eviction? Right before Christmas. She's 2 months behind. This is business. I didn't mention who she was. Didn't need to. The process would unfold exactly as designed, legal, documented, inevitable, but I wouldn't serve the notice yet. That card stayed in my pocket because the emergency meeting was in 3 days, and I wanted to see exactly how far Brenda would push before I pushed back. The night before the meeting, Brenda sent one final email blast to all residents. Tomorrow we vote to protect our neighborhood. Every voice matters. I hit reply all. Kept it simple, I agree. See everyone at 7 p.m. Dell forwarded me a screenshot 20 minutes later. Brenda's group text to her book club. He won't show. Cowards never do. I set my alarm for 6:30 a.m., laid out my clothes, printed 3 copies of the financial audit summary. Then I slept like a baby. Brenda thought she knew who she was dealing with. She had no idea. December 12th, 7 p.m. The clubhouse smelled like stale coffee and lemon floor cleaner. Metal folding chairs scraped against linoleum as 48 residents filed in. The highest turnout in Pinehurst Meadows history. Brenda sat at the head table with her wooden gavel wearing Anavy blazer like this was a corporate board meeting. Her smile was pure confidence. She had her people front left. The book club crew 12 strong, nodding along before anything even started. Dell and Iris sat scattered among the neutral crowd. Smart. Didn't want to look like an organized opposition yet. I took a seat in the back corner. Brenda's eyes flicked to me, surprise registering for just a second before the smile snapped back into place. She banged the gavel. Let's keep this brief. First agenda item. Votato raised dues 40% effective January 1st to cover increased legal and operational costs. Dell stood. Point of order. Where's the budget justification? Legal costs, Brenda said smoothly. Which Mr. Garrett's frivolous complaints have caused, I rose slowly. I'd like to see an itemized invoice for those legal costs. That's confidential attorney-client material. Actually, I said, keeping my voice calm. Under North Carolina Statute 47F31-8, HOA financial records are member property. I have copies. I walked to the front, connected my laptop to the clubhouse TV, pulled up the first image. Check copies showing payments to Pinehurst Property Solutions, LLC for landscaping services. You claimed $89,000 in landscaping costs over 2 years. The actual contractor charges $1,000 annually. That's a $58,000 discrepancy. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Next slide. Business registration showing Kenneth Kowich as registered agent for Pinterest Property Solutions. Kenneth Kulwich, your brother Brenda. Her face went red, sweat beaded on her upper lip, foundation cracking at the edges. Kenneth provides consulting services, project management. What projects? There's no contract on file, no invoices, just checks made out to a shell company. The neutral residents leaned forward now, smartphones out recording. I move to table the dues increase, I said, and call for a full independent audit of all HOA finances. Voice vote. Overwhelming ayes. Brenda tried to gavel it down, but residents shouted her into silence. She stood, hands shaking. Fine, we'll audit, but first let's address the real problem. Absentee investors who don't live here and don't care about our community. She pointed at me. He owns rental properties, multiple, probably a slumlord. We should ban rentals entirely, murmurs of agreement from her faction. I stayed calm. I do own rentals. 6 properties in this neighborhood, all well maintained. My tenants are a teacher, a nurse, a retired couple, young families. 0 complaints. I pulled up the county GIS map, highlighted my 6 properties. Under our HOA bylaws, each property gets 1 vote, which means I control 6 votes in any board matter. Let that sink in for 3 seconds. Which is why I'm calling for a special election to recall the current board and elect new leadership. Perstitute, I need 10% of owners to petition. I have 14%, 20 signatures right here. I handed the petition stack to Brenda, the color drained from her face. You can't do this, she whispered, then louder. This is my board. It's the members' board, I said, and you violated your fiduciary duty. The election is happening. Brenda grabbed her purse, knocked her chair over, and stormed out. The clubhouse door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. Silence. Then someone started clapping, then another. Within seconds, half the room was applauding. But I hadn't played my final card yet. That one was still in my pocket, waiting. December 13th through 30th became a blur of coffee, spreadsheets, and quiet coordination. I convened what Dell started calling the kitchen cabinet at my house 2 days after the meeting. Dell brought his electrical expertise and union organizer instincts. Iris brought institutional memory. She'd lived here longer than anyone and remembered when the HOA actually functioned. Then brought tech skills and social media savvy. Canuela Verne brought legal strategy and a flask of bourbon she didn't apologize for. The smell of Iris's homemade gingerbread filled my kitchen, mixing with the wood smoke from my fireplace. Outside, December wind rattled the windows. First priority, Canuela said, flipping through her notepad, is fortifying your legal position before Brenda tries something desperate. She'd already filed an ethics complaint with the North Carolina Real Estate Commission over the fake eviction notice. Turns out threatening legal action without a law license is a crime. Unauthorized practice of law could result in fines, even criminal charges in extreme cases, something I'd read about years ago when researching tenant-landlord law, never thinking I'd need to use it. She also drafted a new cease and desist, this time alleging fraud, embezzlement, and selective enforcement with prejudice. Send it to both Brenda and the HOA's downtown law firm. Second priority, Dell said, tapping the financial documents spread across my table, is nailing down exactly how much she stole. He'd connected me with Phyllis, a retired IRS auditor who did consulting work on the side. Sharp woman, late 60s, had forgotten more about forensic accounting than most people ever learn. Phyllis spent a week reviewing 3 years of HOA records. Her findings made my blood pressure spike. $58,000 to the fake landscaping vendor, Brenda's brother $12,000 in office supplies charged to the HOA credit card. Actual purchases at Home Goods and TJ Maxx, Brenda's personal shopping sprees. $7,000 legal retainer paid to a firm that never actually invoiced the HOA for work. Kickback to Brenda's friend's husband, an attorney for fake consulting. Total misappropriation, roughly $77,000 over 3 years. She's been robbing you blind, Phyllis said, sliding her summary report across the table and getting sloppy about it. These Home Goods charges. She didn't even bother hiding them. Third priority, threatened situation. My property manager called December 15th. That tenant at 349 Cypress still hasn't responded to the pay or quit notice. It's been 10 days. Want me to file the summary ejectment? North Carolina's eviction process is straightforward. Landlord files in magistrate court after proper notice. Court issues a summon. Tenant gets a hearing date. Filing fee is about $100. Takes maybe 15 minutes at the courthouse. File it, I said, but hold off on serving the summons until after the recall election. I'll tell you when. I wanted the timing perfect. Fourth priority, community engagement. The new created a Pinterest truth page on Instagram and Facebook, posted side-by-side comparisons. Brenda's friends with unpainted fences and RVs parked 4 months. 0 citations versus immaculate properties belonging to me, Iris, and other harassment targets. Violation notices galore. The post went semi-viral in Charlotte area HOA groups. Local TV news, WCNC, reached out for an interview. I declined. Not yet. Timing was everything. Fifth priority, their call election itself. We scheduled it for January 15th, exactly 30 days after filing the petition. Hired an independent monitor, a retired paralegal named Patricia, who'd overseen union elections for 20 years. No stake in the outcome, just there to ensure everything ran clean. Dell agreed to run for president. Iris for treasurer. Marcus, a neutral retired teacher who'd kept his head down until the financial revelations, agreed to run for secretary. We printed campaign literature: professional, simple, transparency, accountability, community. Brenda's counter-campaign was a single photocopied sheet. Don't let outsiders destroy our neighborhood. Meanwhile, Brenda made moves of her own. Through leaks from her book club circle, one member's husband played poker with Dell. We learned she'd hired a private investigator. Her nephew, unlicensed, charging her $200 a day to dig up dirt on me. He found nothing. Honorable discharge, clean credit, taxes paid, 0 criminal history. The most exciting thing in my background was a speeding ticket from 2018. She also tried to amend the CCNRs via emergency board resolution to ban rentals retroactively. Canuela shut that down immediately. CCNR amendments require a 75% supermajority vote of all owners. A board can't just change the rules unilaterally. Christmas week. Things got quiet. Too quiet. I decorated my house. White lights, simple wreath, and received an anonymous card in my mailbox. Thank you for standing up. A grateful neighbor. The handwriting was shaky. Probably Iris. The card's embossed. Snowflake caught the porch light as I turned it over. Same day, Brenda's lawyer sent another threatening letter. Defamation suit if I continued spreading lies about Ms. Kulwich's character. I framed it, hung it in my garage next to my Marine Corps flag. By this point, her legal threats were like spam emails. I just archived them and moved on. January 14th, the night before the election, I couldn't sleep. Lay in bed listening to winter wind rattle the windows. Digital clock glowing 3:47 a.m. This had stopped being about my truck 6 months ago. Now it was about every person Brenda had bullied. Every family she'd pushed, every elderly homeowner she'd targeted for her flipping scheme. I checked my Ring camera. The street quiet, no sabotage attempts. Tomorrow we'd find out if democracy still worked in a place as small as an HOA. January 3rd, I woke to find my truck hide. Deep scratches carved down the entire driver's side, metal showing through the blue paint like exposed bone. I stood there in the cold morning air, breath fogging, fingers tracing the gouges. Whoever did it had taken their time. The lines were deliberate, angry, personal. My neighbor's Ring doorbell caught partial footage. A dark sedan. 2 a.m., driver indistinct in a hoodie. Not enough for prosecution, but enough to know it wasn't random. I filed a police report. The officer was sympathetic, but realistic. Without clear footage or witnesses, it's tough. Could have been kids, could have been someone with a grudge. It was someone with a grudge, I said. I didn't publicly accuse Brenda, didn't need to, but I installed 6 security cameras that afternoon, every angle of my property, uploading to cloud storage. If she wanted to play dirty, I'd have receipts. 2 days later, the smear campaign escalated. Brenda printed new flyers, distributed January 5th and 6th to every mailbox. Investor threatens our safety. She claimed my rental properties housed unvetted criminals and implied they were drug dens. 0 evidence. Just fear-mongering designed to turn neighbors against me. The new scenes posted rebuttals immediately, photos of my well-maintained properties, testimonials from my tenants, all professionals, all grateful for affordable, clean housing. But some longtime residents who didn't follow social media started believing her. Got cold shoulders at the grocery store. One woman I'd waved to for 3 years crossed the street to avoid me. Worse, my tenant, who's a teacher, called me. My principal asked if I lived in a problem property. Mr. Garrett, this is affecting my job. That's when it became real. Brenda wasn't just attacking me anymore. She was hurting innocent people to get to me. January 8th, my property manager called. Your tenant at 349 Cypress hasn't responded to the pay or quit notice. 3 months rent overdue now. That's $5,550. Want me to proceed with eviction? Yes. File in Magistrate Court Standard Summary Ejectment, but don't serve her with the summons yet. I'll tell you when the timing had to be perfect. January 10th, Brenda made her most desperate move yet. She showed up at Dell's house with an envelope. His wife Marlene was home, heard everything through the screen door while Dell stood on the porch. Brenda offered him $2,000 cash, actual bills in her hand, to withdraw from the election and endorse her publicly. Dell, former union steward, incorruptible to his core, told her to get off his property. She tried to sweeten it. Think of it as consulting fees, neighborhood improvement advisor. Ma'am, Dell said, voice hard, you need to leave now. She left the cash envelope on his porch railing and walked away. Dell called me immediately. You're not going to believe what just happened. Marlene signed an affidavit detailing the entire conversation. Date, time, exact words, the cash amount. Canuela filed it with the magistrate court as supporting evidence for potential criminal charges and submitted it to Thurl Estate Commission as another ethics violation. Bribery, embezzlement, fraud, harassment. Brenda was racking up charges like speeding tickets. January 12th, 3 days before the election, I had a chance encounter that almost broke my discipline. I was at the gas station filling up when Brenda pulled into the pump opposite mine. The smell of gasoline hung heavy in the cold air, mixing with her overpowering perfume. She got out, saw me, and her whole body went rigid, then loud enough for other customers to hear. You've ruined this neighborhood. I hope you're proud of yourself. I didn't look up from the pump, just kept watching the number stick higher. You're a parasite, she continued, voice shaking. You don't even live in half those houses. You're just using us. I finished pumping, replaced the nozzle, finally looked Ather. And you don't even own yours, I said quietly. She froze, face going white, then red. Her hands trembled as she fumbled her credit card at the pump. She knew that I knew. I got in my truck and drove away, watching her in the rearview mirror, standing there alone, card still in her shaking hand. The next day, January 13th, Brenda sent an email to all residents claiming the election was postponed due to procedural errors. Complete fabrication. Patricia, our independent monitor, immediately sent a correction. Election proceeds as scheduled. January 15th, 6 p.m. Ignoral misinformation. That night, WCNC aired their segment. 4 minutes of devastating coverage. The fake eviction notice, financial discrepancies, interviews with Iris and me. The reporter Kendra had done her homework. The clip went viral. 300,000 views in 18 hours. At 11:30 p.m., Brenda posted an unhinged Facebook rant. All caps, typos, calling me a liar and thief and destroyer. Threatened to expose ethereal truth but provided nothing except vitriol. Even her book club friends started backing away quietly. I slept fine that night. Let her spiral. Let herage, because tomorrow the community would vote. And the day after that, if necessary, a sheriff's deputy would serve her with eviction papers. Poetic justice had never felt so tangible. January 15th, Election Day. At 4:00 p.m., exactly 2 hours before polls opened, a sheriff's deputy knocked on Brenda's door at 349 Cypress Lane. I didn't coordinate the timing. Pure coincidence. Beautiful poetry. The magistrate court had processed my eviction filing, issued. The summons and the sheriff's civil division served it according to their schedule, but the timing couldn't have been more perfect. Dell texted me a screenshot from the neighborhood watch group. Just saw a cop car at Brenda's. Anyone know what's happening? I didn't respond, just smiled. Brenda knew what it was the moment she saw the uniform. I imagined her opening that envelope reading notice to appear summary ejectment action, seeing my LLC's name as plaintiff, realizing that the man she'd tried to evict with a fake notice was now legally evicting her. An hour later, she arrived at the clubhouse early. I was already there helping Patricia set up the ballot box and voter registration table. Brenda looked like she hadn't slept in days, hair less perfectly styled, makeup heavier than usual, trying to hide exhaustion, hands clutching her purse like a shield. She saw me and her jaw tightened. Didn't say a word, just sat at the head table, staring straight ahead. By 6 p.m., the clubhouse was packed. 89 residents, a record that would probably never be broken, bodies crammed into a space meant for 40. The smell of too many people mixing with burnt coffee and someone's fried chicken takeout. WCNC's camera sat in the back corner. Kendra had gotten permission to film for a follow-up segment. Patricia, or Monitor, called the meeting to order, not Brenda. The transition of power was already happening even before votes were counted. Members will vote first, Patricia announced. Candidates may make brief statements afterward while ballots are tallied. Brenda tried to object. As current president, Should Miss Kulwich, you're a candidate now, not a presiding officer. Please take your seat. The look on Brenda's face could have curdled milk. Voting took 30 minutes. Paper ballots, privacy screens, the satisfying sound of folded paper dropping into the locked box. Democracy in its purest, smallest form. While the count happened in a side room, Patricia plus 3 volunteer witnesses. Tensions simmered in the main space. Brenda sat rigid, arms crossed. Her book club friends clustered around her, whispering reassurances that sounded hollow, even from across the room. Dell caught my eye, gave a subtle nod. We'd done everything we could. Now it was up to the community. Finally, Brenda couldn't contain herself anymore. She stood, demanded the floor. Patricia sighed. Miss Kulwich, we're still counting. Before results are announced, these people deserve to know who they're really electing. She pointed at me, finger shaking. He's a slum lord, an absentee investor who doesn't care about this community, just profit. I stood slowly. I'd like to respond to that. Patricia nodded. I walked to the front, turned to face the crowd. 89 faces, some supportive, some hostile, most just curious. Brenda's partially right. I said, I do own rental properties here, 6 of them. I bought them as investments, yes, but I also bought them because I believe in this neighborhood. I keep them maintained. My tenants are good people, teachers, nurses, families. I take pride in providing quality housing. Pulled out a folder from my bag. But here's what Brenda didn't mention. I opened the folder, held up a lease agreement. Sharon's one of those properties from me. Has for the past 14 months the room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop on that linoleum floor. Cypress Lane, I continued. Brenda's been my tenant since May 2023. Currently, months behind on rent, $5,550 in arrears, and as of 4:00 p.m. today, pulled out the second document. She was served with an eviction summons, a real one this time. Legal, proper. Filed in magistrate court under North Carolina summary ejectment law. The silence shattered. Gasps, shouts, scattered laughter. Some nervous, some vindicated. Brenda's face went purple. That's illegal. Retaliation. You can't. It's not retaliation, I said calmly. It's business. You breached your lease, non-payment of rent, and conducting unauthorized business from the premises. Every HOA meeting you hosted at your dining room table violated the lease terms. This eviction is completely lawful. Canuela stood from the back. I've reviewed the filing. It's textbook proper. Sheriff's already served it. Ms. Kulwich has a court date. Brenda opened her mouth, closed it. Tears streamed down her face, ruining her careful makeup. Black mascara tracked down her cheeks. "You planned this," she choked out. "You orchestrated, I responded to your actions," I said. "Every step of the way. You wanted to play eviction games with fake notices, so I showed you what a real eviction process looks like." She grabbed her purse, knocked her chair over, and ran for the door. The sound of her heels on linoleum, then the slam of the exit echoed through the stunned silence. Nobody followed her, not even her book club friends. Patricia banged her gavel. "Order, please. We have results." The room settled, electric with anticipation. President Dell, 71 votes. Brenda Kowich, 8 votes. Treasurer Iris, 68 votes. Secretary Marcus, 64 votes. Applause erupted. People stood cheering, some wiping tears. Dell took the gavel from Patricia, raised it high. "First order of business. I move we rescind all violation notices from the past 12 months and refund any fines paid." The response was thunderous. "Iris, I move we hire an independent auditor and report findings within 60 days. Another unanimous aye. I stayed in the back watching the community reclaim itself. This was their victory as much as mine. Outside in the parking lot afterward, cold January air biting, neighbors thanked me, shook my hand, hugged me. Iris, eyes shining. "You gave us our neighborhood back." "We did it together," I said. Dell clapped my shoulder. "Drinks this weekend? You earned it, Marine." I stood alone for a moment after everyone left, looking at the clubhouse. Warm light spilling from windows. The building that had been Brenda's fortress now belonging to the people again. This is what community should feel like. Brenda moved out of 349 Cypress Lane by the court deadline. February 15th, avoiding the formal eviction hearing. She left the place trashed, holes punched in drywall, carpet stained beyond cleaning broken appliances. I kept her security deposit and billed her for an additional $12,800 in damages. She never paid. Didn't matter. Some victories aren't about money. The independent audit completed February 28th, confirming exactly what Phyllis had found. $77,000 in misappropriated funds. The new board filed a police report. The DA declined to prosecute. White-collar crime, low priority, restitution unlikely. But they filed a civil suit against Brenda and her brother Kenneth. The case settled in June. Kenneth's landscaping company had actual assets. He repaid $40,000 to avoid criminal charges. Brenda declared bankruptcy and paid nothing. She'd already disappeared by then anyway. Last anyone heard, she'd moved to Florida. Probably found some other community to terrorize. But Pinehurst Meadows West started healing. The new board's first 90 days were transformative. Dues dropped 15% once we cut out the embezzlement overhead. Violation enforcement got a complete overhaul. Photographic evidence required. 30-day cure periods. Actual appeals process with witnesses and documentation. In April, we organized a community workday. Residents showed up with paintbrushes and work gloves. We painted the clubhouse, mulched common areas, planted native wildflowers in the entrance beds. Iris's idea for the pollinators. The smell of fresh mulch and paint mixed with spring air. Kids running around, neighbors actually talking to each other. It felt like a neighborhood again. I updated all 6 rental leases with something I called the HOA Anti-Harassment Addendum. If the HO targeted any tenant with frivolous violations, I'd handle all appeals at my expense. Word spread. Other investor owners in the community started adopting the same language. By late March, I was sitting on my porch again, same spot as that November morning when Brenda slapped the fake eviction notice on my chest. But everything felt different now. The scent of dogwood blossoms hung in warm air. The sound of kids playing basketball 3 houses down. The new hoop no longer a violation. A neighbor waving from across the street. Simple things. Normal things. Things that should have been there all along. Inmate Dell had an idea. Turn the recovered $40,000 from Kenneth's settlement into something good. The board voted unanimously to create the Pinehurst Community Fund, college scholarships for neighborhood kids, home repair assistance for elderly or disabled residents. I donated $10,000 seed money. Felt right. First scholarship went to a high school senior in August, daughter of a single mom who rented one of my properties. Full ride to UNC Charlotte engineering program. The award ceremony was at the clubhouse. The girl's tearful thank you speech, her mom sobbing in the front row. I sat in the back blinking hard, throat tight. This is what HOA should do. Iris proposed converting an unused HOA lot into a pollinator meadow and community garden. The board approved immediately. Ribbon cutting in September. 60 residents local news coverage. Kids running through waist-high wildflowers while Dell's raised garden beds stood ready for planting. The headline read, HOA transforms after scandal into model community. WCNC did a follow-up segment in October. Where are they now? Kendra interviewed me, Dell, and Iris, showed the before and after violation notices versus community gardens, fear versus hope. I told the camera, HOA aren't inherently bad, but they need transparency, accountability, and residents willing to stand up when things go wrong. The segment won a regional Emmy. I still get messages, emails, Facebook DMs from HOA victims nationwide. People fighting their own Brendas, desperate for advice. Last September, someone from Raleigh reached out with a nearly identical situation. Investor harassed by a corrupt board. I spent a weekend writing a detailed guide. How to fight HOA overreach, documentation, strategies, legal steps, state-by-state resources. Posted it free online, 40,000 downloads in the first month. But that's a story for another time. January 15th, 2025, exactly 1 year after the election, I hosted an open house at my place. Casual drop-in 4 to 8 p.m. The smell of chili simmering, cornbread baking, Iris's gingerbread cookies, now an annual tradition. My living room packed with 30-plus neighbors. Kids underfoot, Dell manning the chili station. Classic rock playing low. Dell raised his beer bottle. To Garrett for having the guts to say enough. The crowd echoed. To Garrett. I felt my throat tighten, eyes stinging. To all of us. We took our neighborhood back together, Iris added. Voice soft but firm, and made it better than before. Standing there in my living room, warm hugs, firm handshakes, someone's toddler grabbing my pant leg, I realized something. This fight was never really about trucks or grass height or eviction notices. It was about dignity, about the right to live in peace without petty tyrants making your life hell. And we won. So here's what I want you to take away from this. If you're dealing with an out-of-control HOA, remember, document everything. Photos, timestamps, emails. You can't fight what you can't prove. Know your state's laws. Most have provisions for record access, recall elections, dispute resolution. Google your state plus HOA statute and add the actual law. Find allies. You're not alone in your neighborhood. Others are suffering too. Power in numbers. Use public records. Tax filings, property records, meeting minutes. Mostrare public. Use them. Stay calm. Bullies want you to blow up so they can paint you as the problem. Stay professional, stay factual, stay relentless, and never make it personal. This isn't revenge. It's justice. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below with your craziest HOA story. What's the most ridiculous thing you've been fined for? What violation notice still makes you laugh or rage? And if you're currently fighting an HOA nightmare, let me know. Maybe we can feature your story and help you win. If this story gave you that justice satisfaction you came here for, hit that subscribe button. We cover everything from HOA battles to landlord-tenant wins to small claims court victories. Ring the bell so you don't miss the next one because, trust me, the stories get wilder from here. Until next time, know your rights, stand your ground, and never let the Karens win. Peace.